You don't actually need a job. You've just never questioned the assumption that you do. And that probably feels weird and sounds wrong, but think about it. Did you ever ask why? And was anyone ever able to give you a good answer as to why you need a job? Or did you just grow up absorbing it as a fact? Because from the time you're a kid, you're pointed in this direction. You get the school to job to stable family home life pipeline thing going on in your head. And it wasn't suggested to you by your parents, by your culture, by your teachers. It was presented to you as like a factual reality, that that's the way that things are. And once things get construed in that light, they very rarely get questioned. So most people never stop to ask, is this true? Or was this just what I was trained to believe? And here's when this starts to matter. When you don't question something, you can't see the alternatives, because alternatives are born out of a necessity to change, right? You're not gonna see other paths unless you see the need for other paths. So you see only the one path, and you walk down that path with blind faith, never questioning, even though you know you're gonna hate waking up for this job in 6 months. For most of us, we have to wake up and realize that we didn't choose where we are at right now. We were just living out the programs and the scripts that were downloaded into us from childhood and on. Never having full awareness, never having agency, just accepting what was handed down from us, thinking to ourselves, this is just what adults do. This is just what grown-ups do. All the while we're counting down the time to the weekends, to the vacation in Mexico, the all-inclusive resort that we're gonna get. And then what happens after that? We're right back to it, aren't we? Those moments only last for brief periods of time. The important thing to realize here isn't that we're doing this because we're incapable of doing something else, of going on our own path, of choosing our own way. The reason we live like this isn't because we're incapable of doing what we really want. It's because we think it's the only option. It's because we never questioned the assumption. This is the part most people fast forward past and miss when it can completely change the way that you live your life when it comes to this whole job and freedom paradigm. You thinking that you need a job is a belief that is stuck so deep down within. Notice this. We don't have our beliefs because of reality. Contemplate this. You can become directly aware of this right now. We do not choose our beliefs because of reality. Reality is a certain way, and because reality is that way, we hold the belief that that's how reality is. Reality is what it is because of our beliefs. Again, most people fast forward past that because it seems obvious, right? We hear your reality becomes your beliefs are your reality, or whatever. We hear this said all the time. Really think about that. This can really change the way that you see things. So one more time for the people in the back. We don't believe what we believe because it's real. What is real is because of what we believe. And once that reality that we have built starts to solidify around us, and maybe we didn't even build it. Maybe someone else built it for us, right? That's a lot of times what happens as we grow. Part of our growth is creating our own beliefs, creating our own reality. Right? But once that happens, a lot of people don't make it to the stage where they create this for themselves. A lot of people just make it to the stage of doing well within the reality that they were given, right? You can create your own. You don't. The reality you were given, the beliefs that were downloaded into you, will solidify around you. And for most of us, when it comes to the job thing, that's exactly what's happened. We have to begin to challenge these assumptions, right? So think about this. What if having a job is fine if you want to, right? Let's just say that that's an option, right? But let's just say that that is one of many, 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 many different options, right? We're treating it as the only way, right? But there are people creating things. There are people working for themselves. There are people building their own businesses, right? Because in the world that we live in right now, we have to make money. We do. Right? But we don't have to make it so miserable and difficult. Believe this if you don't believe anything else of what I'm saying. This will be the most helpful belief for you. You can have fun and do what you love to do, and money can come from that. Put that in your subconscious mind, and everything will change. And there are many people who are already structuring their lives completely differently. They're living outside of the system. They're in the world, but they're not of it. These people aren't necessarily smarter than anyone else. They don't have more resources than anyone. They don't have more knowledge. They don't have more ideas, right? They just question what we were told not to. So if it's not about knowledge, if it's not about intelligence, resources, all this stuff, what is it really about? There are 3 things that you can begin to develop in yourself right now that will catapult you to being one of these people that can structure your own life. The first step is to question the assumption, right? That's very, very important to question everything. This is where the real independence starts, okay? A lot of people are too afraid to just go on this first step, and this is where 90%, 95% of people just won't do it. You have to step back, become aware of the programs and the conditioning that have been laid upon you, and you have to become aware of that. Realize it's just conditioning. You can reinsert your own program. Generally, the people that automatically make it are the people that have these core traits when it comes to this. These people had a spiritual awakening. They were able to become aware of themselves, their ego, everyone else's ego. We see it's just like Shakespeare said, all the world's a play, right? It's all just a show. It's all just a game. The second person is someone who has, from birth, already been questioning. They were born with that, right? And they never felt bad about questioning. They always questioned, right? You can develop this though. You can seek it out, you can search it out, or you can just begin to develop right now, or you can step into it right now, this moment. You're welcome to be there anytime you want to. The third trait that has people naturally questioning the assumptions is this sort of like functioning rebel addict, or this sort of like functioning rebel, where they sort of have like this chip on their shoulder, and they don't care. They don't care what you think about them. They don't care about anything. They care about the truth. They care about what's helpful. Like I said, this is where the real independence starts. You can get this one, the next 2 should fall in place. But the next one is just taking action before you're ready, because most people wait until they feel ready to do something. Because think about it, how many times have you had an idea and you think to yourself, I need to learn more stuff before I try that. I need to get more money before I try that. I need to do this, blah, blah, blah. There's always something in the way of you just doing the thing. Just do the thing, or do a part of it, or do what you can now and continue moving forward and watch the dominoes fall. Take the action, take the steps before you're ready. Because people that build their own lives don't wait until they're ready. They trial and error. They try something, it doesn't work. It works, it doesn't work, it works. And they take what works and they go say, okay, I'm adding that too, that worked. They learn through doing, and think about that. That's all you ever do, is you learn by doing and trial and error, right? You can do in textbooks and learn all this stuff and I'll do all this, but you're never really getting the experience, right? Experience will always be better than book knowledge. That's why people get hired that have the experience over people that just have college, right? Experience trumps all. Do, take action, take inspired action. The third thing is that they don't tie themselves, their identity, and their emotional state to any outcome. They take action and they detach from the outcome of the action. Because when something doesn't work, most people make it mean something about themselves. I did this and it didn't do good, so like I'm a failure. No, you're not a failure. You just had a moment that you figured out not to work, like Thomas Edison said. I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just figured out 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Realize the wisdom in that. Realize the wisdom in that, right? We just hear that and we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna skip right past that. Think on that for 2 seconds longer than you usually do. There's so much there. He wasn't attached to the outcome. He knew what his goal was. He knew what he was trying to do. And he took action, 10,000 times. People like that treat every single failure and success not as a demerit or a merit, but as just a data point. They adjust and they try again if they fail. And if something succeeds, they don't attach themselves to that either. They stay objective, and that's what keeps them moving forward. I want to bring this back around to the main point here, though. The reality of the issue isn't the jobs. It's the unquestioned belief that this is just the way that life works. We have so many of those little things. The jobs is just one of them, right? When we can remove those little by little, our life becomes something that we've made, not that someone else, not that one that someone else has made for us. Because the reality about the jobs thing is that you don't have to have a job, right? There's so many different ways that you can make money. The people at the top, there's a lot of people at the top that work very hard to make their money, right? That they're billionaires. There's also a very large group of people that don't really work at all, and they're some of the richest people in the world. Or maybe they work 4 hours a week, right? There's both and. And then there's also people that believe that they have to give their time to somebody else to live a good life and to make money. And that's just not the only truth. That's just not the only way. It just isn't. So here's a really simple place to start. Instead of asking yourself, what's the safest option? Where's my security? What can I do here, right? You have to start to kind of take a little bit of risk. That's life. You kind of have to open yourself up to risk a little bit, right? But know that you're not opening yourself up to any risk at the same time, because you are taken care of. Life will take care of you. Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has its own worries. That is such a fundamental spiritual truth that if we could really, really get that, we could be unstoppable. So start asking yourself this instead. What would I choose if I fully trusted myself? What would I choose if I fully trusted myself? What's underneath that question is, what would I choose if I knew that I was someone that could succeed at whatever? If I knew that I couldn't fail? If I was the main character? If I was the guy? If I was the girl? If I was the man? If I was the woman? What would I choose to do? Answer that. Go for that, because that's where a lot of energy is going to be, right? And you want to move in the direction of your energy, because that is how you can surf through life. You can't surf in waters that aren't moving, in the same way that you can't move happily and freely, gracefully through life in a place with still stagnant waters. There's no wind, you can't sail, you can't surf or anything like that. We need to be moving in the direction where the energy is flowing. That's how we flow and move through life. This one shift alone starts to break that pattern organically. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to quit your job tomorrow, okay? That also doesn't mean that you need to burn everything down, right? And just leave it all and start from scratch. No, we can do this slowly, right? You got into this slowly, right? So you might want to think about getting out of it slowly, okay? But one thing's for sure, you need to begin to question that assumption. Because if you don't, you're gonna live your entire life thinking that you chose that when you really didn't. The moment you realize it's just a belief, it no longer controls you. Once you see that, you can't unsee it.